I used to believe silence was empty. Now I know it's where truth hides. My name is Elena Moreau, and for 12 years I lived in a house that looked like love, but sounded like lies. You'd never know it from the outside. White stucco, black shutters, jasmine climbing the trellis like it was trying to smother the truth before it could bloom. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble countertops, Persian rugs, Julian's expensive watches lined up like obedient soldiers in their glass case. He liked things polished, controlled, predictable. Me, I liked sound, real sound. The crackle of a 1952 Billie Holiday acetate, the hiss before a needle finds its groove, the way a voice trembles when it's telling the truth or lying through its teeth. I should have heard it sooner, but grief has a way of dulling your ears. We lost our daughter Clara when she was 3, a fever that turned septic overnight. One minute she was humming along to You Are My Sunshine, the next, silence. After that, Julian stopped touching me unless it was performative. A hand on my waist at parties, a kiss on the cheek for Instagram. I thought he was grieving. Turns out he was just making room. The maid's name was Rosa. She came to us 6 months after Clara died. Quiet, efficient, always wearing those thin cotton gloves. At first, I was grateful. Someone to fold the laundry, dust the piano, keep the house from collapsing into the void we'd become. But then I noticed things. Julian started leaving his office door open when she cleaned. He'd forget his wallet on the hall table, right before her shift ended. Once I found a single long black hair on his pillow. Mine's ash blonde. Still, I told myself I was paranoid. Grief makes you see ghosts. Then came the day I walked into the laundry room and saw Rosa holding one of Julian's shirts to her face, eyes closed, breathing it in like it was oxygen. She didn't see me. I backed away silently, heart hammering against my ribs. That night, I sat in my studio, the small converted sunroom where I restored vintage recordings, and stared at my collection of field recorders. I'd used them to capture street musicians in Havana, monks chanting in Kyoto, rain on tin roofs in Montreal. Now I wondered if they could capture betrayal. I chose the Nagra SN, Swiss-made, analog, nearly silent in operation. I wrapped it in an old velvet cloth, tucked it inside the hollowed-out base of the antique radio in Julian's study, the one he never touched because it's just a core. I ran a micro USB cable through the wall to a hidden power source, synced it to a private cloud drive via a burner phone I'd bought with cash. I told no one, not my sister, not my therapist, especially not Julian. For 2 weeks, nothing. Just the mundane soundtrack of a marriage on life support. Julian complaining about traffic, me asking if he wanted wine, the clink of ice in glasses. Then, on a Tuesday, because betrayal loves a weekday when the world is too tired to care, I heard it. I was editing a 1947 transcription disc when the alert pinged on my laptop. New file uploaded. Study 04182317.wave. I put on my headphones, pressed play. Julian's voice, low and thick like bourbon. You don't have to pretend anymore, Rosa. She doesn't even notice when I'm gone. A pause, then her voice, softer, hesitant. But Senora Elena, she's kind. She gave her her daughter's old coat last winter. Clara's been dead for 5 years, and Elena's buried herself in those damn records ever since. She's not a wife, she's a ghost with a paycheck. I gripped the edge of my desk. My knuckles went white. Besides, he continued, once the Henderson deal closes, I'll have enough offshore to disappear. You and me, Costa Rica. No more cleaning, no more ghosts. Rosa whispered something I couldn't quite catch, something tender, then the unmistakable sound of kissing, slow, greedy. I didn't move for an hour, didn't breathe, just sat there listening to the man I'd shared a bed with for over a decade plan his escape with the woman who folded my underwear. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't just a ghost, I was an archivist, and archivists preserve evidence. The next morning, I called Miriam Cho, my lawyer, yes, but more importantly, the woman who'd pulled me out of a panic attack at that audio engineering conference in Nashville 3 years ago. She'd left her own husband after he tried to claim her patent as marital property. We'd stayed in touch, shared war stories over encrypted texts. I told her, I need you to move fast and quietly. While Julian was at his client lunch, probably fucking Rosa in some boutique hotel off Magazine Street, I transferred full ownership of my studio, Elena Moreau Audio Restoration, to a Delaware LLC Miriam had set up. All my equipment, client contracts, even the rare shellac discs I'd collected, they were mine alone, thanks to a clause I'd insisted on when we married. Julian had rolled his eyes but signed. Sentimental nonsense, he'd called it. Then came the dinner party. Not just any dinner, the annual spring gala for Julian's biggest development project, the Riverband Residences. City council members, bank execs, his smarmy partner, Marcus Vail, even the mayor's chief of staff, all people whose trust he needed to stay solvent. I told Julian I wanted to reignite our spark, that I missed us. He actually teared up, kissed me like he meant it. I let him. Revenge tastes better when it's served warm. The night of the party, I wore a deep emerald dress, the color of envy, or maybe renewal. I'd spent the afternoon wiring every speaker in the house to my central system, not just the Sonos units, the outdoor patio speakers, the bathroom Bluetooth shower speaker, even the tiny one in the wine fridge, all routed through my studio laptop. At 8:15 p.m., as guests sipped champagne under string lights in the courtyard, I slipped away. In the studio, I cued the file, made sure the volume was calibrated, clear enough to hear every inflection, but not so loud it distorted. Then I typed one command, play all. Silence fell for exactly 3 seconds. Then Julian's voice poured into every corner of our home. Even if she found out, she'd walk away with nothing but her records. The effect was instantaneous. Marcus dropped his oyster fork, Councilwoman Duarte froze mid-bite, Rosa, who'd been refilling water glasses, stumbled back so hard she knocked over a ponted fern. And Julian? He stood in the center of the dining room like a statue caught mid-sin, face draining of color. Before anyone could speak, I walked to the top of the staircase, clicked my mic on, yes, I'd wired myself too, and said, calm as a metronome, actually, Julian, I kept something else. I played the rest, the embezzlement talk, the Costa Rica fantasy, the part where he mocked my grief like it was a weakness instead of a wound. When it ended, the only sound was Rosa sobbing in the hallway. I descended the stairs slowly, stopped in front of Julian, handed him a vinyl sleeve. Inside wasn't music, it was a copy of our prenup with a writer he'd never seen, notarized the week after Clara died, stating that any attempt to conceal assets or commit fraud would forfeit his claim to all jointly held property. Attached was Miriam's forensic audit, $2.3 million diverted to a shell company called J&R Holdings. His eyes widened. You forged this? No, I said. You signed it, while you were drunk at Clara's memorial luncheon. Remember? You cried so hard you barely knew your own name. He lunged for the papers. I stepped back. The DA already has a copy, I said softly. So does the SEC. And Marcus, your board meets Monday. Marcus looked like he wanted to vomit. I turned to the guests. Thank you all for coming. Dinner's canceled, but feel free to take a bottle of wine on your way out. Consider it severance. One by one, they left. Some offered quiet words. Others couldn't look me in the eye. Rosa fled without her purse. Julian stayed, sat at the head of the table like a king dethroned, staring at the untouched duck confit. I packed that night. Just clothes, my passport, Clara's baby bracelet, and my favorite Neumann microphone. Left everything else, the art, the furniture, even the wedding album. Let him sell it all to pay his lawyers. 3 days later, I boarded a flight to Austin. Miriam had connected me with a collective of women in music tech, producers, engineers, label owners who'd all been burned by men who thought they were disposable. They offered me studio space, seed funding, even a guest room while I got my bearings. Now I run Veritas Sound, a restoration studio with a side mission helping artists retain ownership of their masters. We also offer pro bono services to women documenting abuse, because sometimes the clearest proof isn't a photo or a text, it's a voice. I still listen to old recordings, but now when I hear silence between the notes, I don't fear it. I lean into it, because that's where I found my voice again. And Julian? Last I heard, he's renting a studio above a laundromat in Metairie. Rosa moved back to Honduras. Funny how clean things get when you finally stop polishing the lies.